Morning, friends. It is Seed Starting Saturday, and it is your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler. And I'm so glad you've joined me here this morning. We got a lot of fun stuff. Can you see here? I have so many gorgeous seedlings. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of them. And I just handpicked just a few to share with you this morning. So today's going to be really a fun day. So we're going to do our normal sunflower sowing probably later in the show. And so we'll do our sunflower sowing. And guess what else it's time to do, friends? And if we have time, I'll go into depth talking about it. We start our sweet corn in plug trays exactly like we do sunflowers. And we do that to beat the bug pressure. So we'll talk about that. And we're hoping to have a special guest here this morning, Joe Lample. If you're not familiar with Joe, he has had a 13 season running show on PBS called Growing a Greener World. Joe has become a really good friend in the last few years, and he is like the home growing vegetable guru. And so he's going to join us here this morning in just a little while and talk to us about his. He is holding a free vegetable growing summit next week. And you're invited if you sign up. I signed up for it. And anyway, so hopefully Joe will be coming on. So let's just get some things out of the way here. The housekeeping, welcome aboard. Friends, if you're enjoying my channel here on YouTube, please subscribe so you don't miss any. And we just love it when you comment and share with your friends. And if you're watching on Facebook, to also like it and share it with those groups that you think would benefit from this. So I am sitting in where my little studio, Jesse and I were just talking about that I'm kind of boxed in here. We're kind of crammed over in a corner here in my big work building. So in the coming months, we're going to have much bigger sets, and I'm so excited about it. But over here in the corner, I have our dried flower wall behind me. These are all leftover flowers from last season that we, instead of composting them as we normally would do, we just hung them up to air dry. No extra work other than rubber banding them and hanging them from a chain right above my head here. And friends, we just got all this gorgeousness. I mean, our goal is to have 3 times this much for next year. So I'm sitting here in my set. And if you are new to the Gardener's Workshop, I just want to welcome you here. And if you want to learn more about the work that we're doing, you can learn more at thegardenersworkshop.com, which is home base to everything. It's home base to all of our online schools and courses, as well as our online garden shop. I would highly recommend that you sign up for our farm news. It comes out, 1 or 2 come out a week, and they're content rich. And that'll keep you in the know, because if you haven't heard, friends, we are doing an open farm this year. We do it for 1 day. The farm and the warehouse will be open. And if you are my student, Dave's student, or Ellen Frost's student through our schools, there's a special something going on for you that day, and you better check your inbox. So you want to sign up for our farm news if you're not one of our students, so you don't miss out on the fun. And I just, we love what we're doing, y'all. And the more likes and shares that we get, that makes the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or our podcast, it just makes them show us to more people, and growing our audience is the point of us doing this. And that's what leads me to fund all of this. So when it comes time, if you need tools, seeds, or supplies, or a course to expand your horizons, consider the Gardener's Workshop, because all of the icing on these cakes that you guys are enjoying are the result of that. So all right, so let's talk about these seedlings, friends, so I can get rid of these trays in front of me. So we are knee deep in seed starting here on the farm. We launched our vegetable line of seeds yesterday. And if you haven't gotten our phone app, that's something else that we have. You can search your app store, Gardener's Workshop, and get our phone app. You can watch all the replays, but we launched our vegetables yesterday. And this is the week we really start heavily in starting our seeds for our vegetables. But what I have here to show you are some of our flowers so you can see them. So these are our this is the tray that we absolutely adore. These are, we import these from England. They're super rigid, long. They're like the cafeteria trays, but on a smaller scale. So this is one of the amaranths, and I wanted to give you an amaranth tip right out of the gate, friends. So amaranth, which has, I bet we grow probably 8 to 10 different varieties. And amaranth has its own little issues, which I wrote about it in my new book that's coming out in 11 months now, y'all. We're down to the countdown of months. The thing about amaranth is normally a super quick germinator. And what I mean by that is when Bobo sows it at 8 a.m. in the morning, it is not uncommon that when it's put on the heat, that by 8 o'clock that evening, 12 hours later, it's already starting to crack. And what does that lead to? That leads to us not noticing it and getting these long, lanky seedlings. See that? That is because these sat on the heat 12 hours longer than these did. These were both started in the morning, and that evening, I think it was because these were green and I noticed the little sprouts when I looked at them. I pulled them off the heat 12 hours after they were started. And this is what they grew. See how nice and uniform they are? Look at this. Those were leaning for light. So because they spent the night in the dark with the light on across the room where the grow lights are, they started reaching. So the moral of the story is that you have got to monitor your seedlings. I shared this yesterday. So this will be, we'll call this my monologue of the YouTube. I find that people really downplay. They don't realize how important the seedling stage of your planting, how it affects the outcome of your seed starting process. I mean, from the first few days, I mean, if you listen to the No-Till Flowers podcast that Jenny Love and I did together that came out 3 weeks ago, and it was about seed starting. And we talked about how the first days of life are so important. They impact the production of the end plant. And I think so many, particularly those of us that are coming in to farming and gardening like I did, not knowing anything, you just kind of rush through it and barely get by. Friends, it doesn't need to be that way. It should be more focused in the beginning so that you can be that way at the end because you set all the foundation pieces into action. So when you're sprouting seedlings, you need to set aside time. I only go into my seedling room once a day in the morning, first thing. Takes me almost an hour to water, to mist anything, to move stuff around, to take care of those types of things. And then I water and I say, see ya. I don't go back in that room till the next day. It is just part of my business work day. And I think that's part of my success story. And I just hear so many people, it's like, oh, well, I don't even have time to water every day. Well, then maybe you don't have time to be a farmer, right? So you have to have time to care for your seedlings. That 24-hour cycle of watering this morning, they go through the day with warmth under grow light. And then as the grow lights go off 16 hours later, they go into the night and they're dry when you come the next morning. So I haven't watered these yet this morning. And I kind of picked these. You can kind of see, I hope, how dry these are. I have not watered them yet this morning. You have to I guess what I want to say is this stage of your seedling is so much more important than what we tend to think of it as. So that's the amaranth tip. Pay attention to your seedlings, get them off of the heat quickly and get them under grow lights to prevent this from happening. And they'll look like this, right? So these are 100 of the 3/4 inch blocks that are in here. They will grow in this block until they're planted out in the garden. Amaranth is definitely a plant that needs to be pinched because the stems will get enormous and the blooms are huge and they just aren't very useful. This is Celosia. This is the coxcomb gold, the chief. Look at these, y'all. Oh my gosh, if y'all could only rub your hands over these. How gorgeous are these seedlings? These were started March 6th. So what is today? I can't even see it on the clock. The 20-something is all I know, right? So I've been kind of holding them back, but now we're starting to hit them with fertilizer every week, and we're going to be pinching half of them. We have some beds made. We got our beds made. If you watch our farm cam on YouTube, if you didn't know that, we have a live camera on one of my gardens that you can see. And we just made beds this last week, and you can see part of them are planted. Those are the rest of my cool flowers. But we now have space for warm season as soon as I get them big enough, and we'll be hooping and covering them. And friends, in case I forget to tell you later, we have planted our first 2 sunflower plantings out in that field garden. So this is more Celosia, and you can see, y'all, I grow a little bit of stuff on my blocks too. It happens to everybody, right? This is Selway salmon. This is one of the most popular colors that we sell in the plumes, the Selway. And so this is the small tray, and this has 40 of the 3/4 inch blocks. And then just for a comparison, we also have the large tray. So this is small, this is large, this has 60 plants. And then that big green tray we just looked at was 100 plants. They grow in these blocks until they go to the garden. And you can see these are still sprouting. There's a bunch still just coming on here. And so from now until the end of cool flower seed starting, which is usually about October, we are constantly starting seeds. Our seed starting freight train is on board and going full speed ahead. And it's to be able to do that, you really have to plan a little bit. I mean, I will tell you, we do our seed starting on a 4-week kind of cycle. And by the time Bobo gets this through these 4 weeks or this list that's on this 4 weeks, then it's time for more, because we don't also, just like you, we don't have enough lights and heat mats and even germination chamber to start them all at one time. You pace yourself, right? So next week, we'll be starting all of our tomatoes. We'll be starting some peppers. We still aren't starting our squash and stuff yet, because that only goes for about 2 weeks. And, it's just, you have to kind of be willing to pace yourself. And I think because people feel pressured that they're late, you're never too late, friends. There's always a seed to be started. You just come on board, whatever season it is for your area, and say, all right, what should we be starting now? Stop looking over your shoulder at what you think you should have started. You need to be looking at today and forward. And I mean, that's true in life too, right? And business and everything else. So I am going to talk about our sunflowers, and we'll wait and if we get Joe on here successfully, then we'll just pause where we are. So we start sunflowers every week so that we have sunflowers to cut every single week. And we are now officially in the normal seed starting time. We've been starting them for several weeks, doing the early bird, which we're moving from that. So when I'm considering which sunflowers am I going to start, I'm thinking, when are they going to bloom? What season is that? So I'm going to start adding in some of those great normal, or I guess traditional sunflower seeds this week. So we start our sunflowers inside. Why? More success, it's quicker, it's easier, and it's more economical. That's what commercial growers do. And it's super easy for home gardeners to do it. You can do it in blocks. In the 2-inch soil block, if you don't want to start a whole 128 tray. What is in this 128 tray is just any any potting mix mixed 50-50 with compost. Literally, I just did it outside. We have a huge tub that's bigger than my tray. I dump in half of it with the potting mix, and then I dump in the other half with compost that I buy in bags. It's all about convenience, y'all. And we make compost, but we just put that in our garden. We just buy the bags, so we'll have it. And I mixed it up. Look how dirty my fingernails are. I just love mixing it up, y'all, having your hands all in that soil. And then in the tray, the plug tray is big enough that I can just set it in the tub and fill it up. And hey, it looks like I think I see our guest is here. So I'm just going to pause in the sunflowers while Jesse brings him on and tell you just a little bit about my friend Joe. Joe, as I mentioned earlier, hey, Joe, you're muted. Can you unmute him, Jesse? Technology is what makes us gray. I think you're unmuted now.
There. How's that?
Hey, you're perfect. Good morning.
Good morning. I feel so bad. I just walked in from the greenhouse and totally had that lapse of sense of place and time and all of that. So I apologize if I'm late.
You don't have to apologize at all.
Good.
Because we've been running through things. So I just I told everybody that you were coming here this morning, but I just want to say again, this is Joe Lample. Many of you probably know him from his TV show, Growing a Greener World. Joe is in Georgia. And he has become a really good friend. He is the home vegetable growing guru. I mean, you all know that those beds that I built last year, I copied from Joe. We call them the Joe beds. And so Joe is just a great resource. And we've asked him here this morning in preparation of his summit that is coming out next weekend, which Jesse is going to share on here the link where you all can sign up. It is a free event that I already signed up, y'all. So you have got to be there. And if you can't be there, Joe, in case I forget to say, you will be sharing the recording, right?
So, yes.
Okay. So people definitely want to sign up. So what I want to know from Joe here this morning before he tells us about his summit is what's going on in the vegetable garden in Georgia. Tell us a little bit about your growing conditions down there and what you are up to.
Yes. Well, I just came in. I am soaking wet. I came in from moving a lot of my plants out of the greenhouse. I ran out of room in my greenhouse, even as big as it is. Now I know why they always say, whatever greenhouse size you got, it's never big enough. And mine is 2,700 seedlings. I'm using the floor space, but I need to harden stuff off, and it's not getting the sun it needs when it's on the floor, blocked by other plants. So I've been spending the last hour getting all my lower plants out into my beds in my garden, which is a short walk away, but still it's work. And you walk into the sauna of the greenhouse. It's a gorgeous day here in Atlanta. It's so beautiful, and some rain last night. But in the garden, we've got some cool season crops that are going. We got peas and brassicas, and we've got our soil and our flower beds ready to go for the seeds that we're going to sow and the transplants we're going to put in there. But we've had some crazy weather, Lisa. We've had some really cold, below freezing nights recently. And, a lot of our vegetables between the wind and the cold are like, what are you doing to me? So we're struggling with that, but they're making a rebound. But it's crunch time. And, 2 weeks from now, we'll have our plant sale beginning for our warm season crops, mainly our peppers and our tomatoes. And there just are not enough hours in the day right now. So it's all hands on deck. Everything's looking good. Mostly it's warm now, but, that can easily change in a day.
Joe, it just doesn't depend on whether you're a commercial grower like I am or a robust, ambitious home gardener with a lot of other business relations to what you grow, or the home gardener just starting out. We were just talking about this. You never have enough space. Right. I mean, I did exactly what you did. I moved out 10 trays, which is 1,000 seedlings, out this morning because I had to bring them in last night because there's no room left in the grow room.
Right.
I mean, no matter what you have, you then fill it up, right?
Yes. So, I don't know how I'm ever going to exercise restraint. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I don't think restraint's necessary. Does that liberate you a little bit? I
Yeah,
mean,
a
for
little bit.
me,
Yes, because I don't think
I
I'll be able to do it, so it doesn't.
the method that we've started to employ here on our farm is we always start. This is our theory. This is the way we justify it. Let's put it that way. We always start twice as much as we have room to plant,
Wow.
and then we plant the strongest,
Mhm.
and then we do the best we can to find room to plant the others.
Wow, good,
I
good.
mean, it's kind of crazy because, when you're trying to fill up beds, as I know you are, as you guys have been filming for your
Mhm.
new upcoming
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
you want not one hole in a bed.
Right.
You want it full and voluptuous. And I did that because as a commercial flower farmer, we want every square foot to produce as much as it can. Because I'm an urban farmer. I'm in the middle of the
Yeah.
city. I have acres and acres. Every foot counts. It kind of is the same for you, but maybe for a different reason. So
Mhm.
I'm all about packing
Yeah.
in as much as we have to. And so what is your last spring frost?
It's sort of April 15th, but, they've moved the calendar earlier, so it's more like the 10th, but you can never trust it completely. You have to look at that
Yeah.
10-day forecast and the shorter term, because 2 years ago, we had 28 degrees when the low was forecasted for, 36 on one of those days right around the 15th of April, and so you get that wild card thrown in, and it's like all bets are off. So mid-April is kind of supposed to be the safe date.
That's the same for us, and I remember that year because that 2 years ago, we lost
Yeah.
all of our peony buds.
Oh,
Peonies are super hardy plants,
yeah.
but that kind of temperature when the buds are developed, and just sitting there waiting to bud. We cut 1,000 stems of peonies. That is a significant.
Ooh, God.
That was quite a hit. So I think the moral to the story, because don't you think that's a huge struggle for new gardeners, whether it's
Oh, yeah.
vegetables or flowers? It's like you're so worried. How do you know what to do? Well, even we don't know to do. But I know for me, I am first thing I do in the morning when I set up, and this is ridiculous, but it's because I'm a commercial farmer. I set up in bed, I grab my phone, and first I look at something business wise, and then I hit the weather app.
Yeah.
I look at the 2-week forecast.
Yeah.
It just keeps me in tune with that. How do you stay prepared for whatever is the unexpected?
It's interesting you say that. I too love my weather apps, and I look at more than one, and I have a nice thermometer in my greenhouse that shows outside temperature and inside temperature. And so I'm always checking. I'm always aware of temperature, what's coming, what's present, where it's headed, where it's been, and thinking ahead for the next day. Most importantly for me, like when I'm hardening off plants, can I leave them out overnight or do I need to bring them back in? And to the extent that I can leave them out, all the better. But like a day like today, I've got some peppers that have had a little bit of sun exposure damage. Just how it looks a little
Mhm.
bleach when you leave them out a little too long, but it's easy to do when you have a lot of plants and you think it's a gorgeous day. Give them some sun, and they're peppers, right? But they're very sensitive to hardening off. So now I have them all back outside in a big bed, and in an hour when we finish, I'm going to go out there and put 70% row cover or shade cloth over those with my hoops, and that will help me not have to bring them in. But I need to know, what I'm going to be dealing with in the next 24 to 48 hours. So that determines what I have to do the night before or the morning of.
Right. And I mean, being a little bit prepared, like you're talking about the 24 to 48-hour window
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
ahead, at least you don't wake up in the morning and go, yikes, I should
Yes.
have brought my plants in. I have an alarm that goes off on my phone at like 7:30, and it
Yeah.
just says, what's the temperature?
Huh.
Because like you, with the plant sale, but even business, home gardeners value their plants as much
Mhm.
as commercial people do.
Indeed.
Oh my goodness. To wake up in the morning and realize that you toasted your plants from too cold or, not enough. So, enough chit chat about all of this. Joe, tell us about this summit that's coming up this weekend that you are doing, and everybody is available to come to it.
Yeah, they are. It's free. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Tuesday is an introduction, and it's helping people understand the difference between organic and non-organic gardening and growing, and more of a holistic approach to, if you want to be an organic gardener, there's certain specific things that you can do or not use to garden organically. But in the bigger picture, which is where I'm coming at it from, is in addition to giving specifics, I want people to understand it as a lifestyle as well, because it's not just how you manage what's in your garden, but the collateral damage and the unintended consequences of
Yes.
what's beyond your garden if you're not thinking bigger picture. So I'm going to help people understand and get their head around that, because I want them in this workshop and these workshops to really feel like they've got it nailed on the 7 what I call non-negotiables of organic gardening. So we're going to talk about how you manage your pests and diseases, how you utilize your soil and make it better, how you use mulch and your options for that, how you water and how to get the watering amount right, and some other things there with the 7 non-negotiables. And that's on Thursday. On Wednesday, I want people to understand more about how to not only know how to do what you need to do when you're in the garden, but how to prepare. And I always call it, are you a planner or a planter? And so I want people that are following sort of the way that I think about organic gardening to be planners, because that way you set yourself up for what's ahead, Lisa. Like we're just talking about the weather, we're
Mhm.
planning ahead because we know what's coming. Or when it does come, because we've prepared ahead of time, we're not in panic mode.
Exactly.
So that's a big part of what I'm going to be teaching on Wednesday. And then on Tuesday, it's really getting our heads around, why does organic gardening matter? What's the difference? Are plants really more resilient when you've got organically grown seed, or when they've grown organically from the farmer who presented the seed? Things like that. Just beyond maybe what instinctively makes sense to think about. I want people to really be expanding their thought process around the steps and the rationale behind it.
Joe, that was a great explanation, because
Thanks.
one of the common questions that I get asked that I just can't answer in a short answer
Yeah.
is like, so because we don't use pesticides, we don't even use organic pesticides here
Right.
at all.
Right.
And it's like people are like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And it's I can't just answer that with a
Mhm.
short, oh, we do this. It's like
Right.
it is a lifestyle. And that's the way I really describe it also. It's the way that I have the 30,000-foot view.
Yes.
I'm thinking about a lot of different things, but when we restore the natural order and give it a
Yes.
hand instead of, I call it about it. When you want to bicker with Mother Nature by intervening with things that you think are helping, you
Yeah.
break the chain. I mean,
Yeah.
that just makes me think of our friend Doug Tallamy. I mean,
Mhm.
his book changed my farming life 10 years ago or whatever it was, realizing, just thinking of that chain.
Yeah.
And when one link is broken, it affects everything
It
else. And
does.
I mean, if you have not read, y'all, he's got so many great books, but the Bringing Nature Home book by Doug
Mhm.
Tallamy really helps with that. And it takes people, I think, beyond me and Joe as far as landscape plants, native plants, and how to plan your home beyond your vegetable and your flower cutting garden. Anyway, so I just I'm excited about your summit, Joe. I
Thank
mean,
you.
that'll
I
be, and I think these are things that can be applied to a cutting garden, a flower garden, a landscape, not just a vegetable
Mhm.
garden.
Correct. In fact, I took the word vegetable out of my description several times throughout the days that I'm talking about what I'm going to be talking about, because I want people to understand, if you have this ethos about wanting to garden with stewardship and organically with the bigger picture in mind, it supersedes, or it overshadows just anything just from in one type of garden. So it's
Right.
applicable across the board. But I love what you said with your, when people say, well, how do you even do it without pesticides? And it's not an easy, quick answer. And so that's why in the workshops we're doing, I'm going to get you well on your way. But even in an hour, it's
Right.
you're barely scratching the surface.
Well, but you get better with time. I mean, here I am 25 years into commercial farming, and I mean, I'm learning. Hey, I learned something from you the other day on our podcast that'll be coming
Funny.
out soon. I mean, y'all have to tune in. Seed Talk has a great podcast coming out with
Yeah.
Joe and Lane and I, and
Mhm.
he shares a killer tip in there that, I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Good.
So I think that's really, really great. And so, Joe, tell us, and what else is the big news that's coming out with you is your new organic vegetable gardening course.
This is big news. It's the biggest project I've ever done in my life, including, producing a television series for 12, 13 years now. Because we put everything on hold, including the show, to film this new course called Organic Vegetable Gardening. And the reason why I wanted to do this for years is because when I was picked to be the host of Fresh from the Garden on the DIY network, it was a brilliant concept. And the show was all about teaching people how to grow food from seed to harvest. And each episode was focused on one particular crop. So one episode was how to grow tomatoes from seed to harvest and care for it and everything that happens along the way. And then another episode would be on beans, and another one would be on peas, etc., for 52 episodes. But that was in 2003, 4, and 5. Ahead of its time, not organic, and totally scripted. And here we are 20 years later, and I've got this beautiful raised bed organic garden right outside my window. And I want to basically recreate that concept, only way better. So it's something that was gnawing at me every year, Lisa, but with the television show that we were working on for 12 years. I mean, how do you take time away when you put your underwriters on hold and you put everything else on hold?
Yeah,
And stop the funding, stop the revenue stream from coming in that supports all those years of your team and everything else. I turned it all off. And so basically for the last year and a half, I'm working for free and paying my team in the hopes that, we just break even, with this
right.
new course. But the point is, we filmed for the entire year last year, warm and cool season crops in my garden. And we were able to complete 25 different crop focused videos. And each video is approximately 20 minutes long of the point that we put it into the ground all the way through harvest and whatever came up in between. And we're going to continue to add to each of those videos. Plus we're going to do new crop videos this year because let's face it, in the heat of the moment and everything that's going on, you can't get everything that's happening at the
Yep.
same time when your garden is full. So there's a few gaps in there that we're going to fill this year. So there's that. But I was so happy that we finally committed to it. It was a scary, scary thing to do, to tell Subaru, we need to put you on hold for a year. Uh,
Yeah,
don't send us your underwriting money and stuff like that. But I feel good about the course. It's amazing. There is not anything else like it. I can say that without a doubt. There's no other course in the world that has allocated this much time and energy and resources and talent to creating this course. So in addition to the grow videos, that's just part of it. The other part is 10
yeah,
educational modules that go deep into the subjects of organic gardening. So if you really want to understand soil science and how organic nutrients are made available to plants, how does that happen? We're talking about that. So we're going up
right.
1 to 2 levels on over anything that probably anybody is at right now. So for new gardeners, it's great. For people that have been doing it a while, they're going to learn a lot too. So I'm a little bit excited about it and I have a lot to say, but one more thing, Lisa. We've got masterclass live presentations with the top experts in their field all throughout the year, exclusively for the students in the course. It's not something we're going to put into YouTube or Zoom and make it public or post it
Right.
anywhere. It's private for the students because they deserve this high level education that we've gone out and we've sourced the best people in their field, including you, for Cool Season Flowers. And you're one of our experts, and I'm very excited about in the fall. I think it's September, but
Yep.
a lot of unique things, plus access to ask your instructor, moi, and some others, anytime through the year. It's private access for that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of value to that. And there's some wisdom that I have to share that all you got to do is ask.
Yeah, that's great, Joe. I mean, so we're super excited. So if you haven't already signed up for his summit, now is the time, and it starts on Tuesday. It is recorded. So because it's during the day, right, Joe?
Yes, it's at 12 noon Eastern.
Yeah. So if you aren't able to make that, you can sign up and get the recording sent to you so you can watch it.
Yeah.
And I'll be there.
Good.
So I hope that everybody will join us. So Joe, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And I'm kind of jealous. I'm just now remembering that you just got a brand new greenhouse, of which I have none. And that's really, I mean, I know that'll be really a lot of fun for you and a
It
big
is.
help.
Yes, it's amazing the difference it makes, Lisa. Not gonna lie, it's a big
Yeah,
difference.
I hear you. I
Yeah,
hear you. All right, Joe. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. And we'll all see you, I hope, on
good.
Tuesday. So y'all check out Joe's Summit. It is free and full of great information. So
Wonderful. Yes,
thank you
I'll
so
see you
much.
there. Thanks for having me today.
All right, friends. Awesome. I mean, one of the things that I love about Joe is that he gets out and interviews so many different people in different areas and has been to so many gardens. And so his knowledge base is so vast. And I wanted to answer a question. I saw it come up here back and I just wanted to address it. Somebody was asking about natural and because I said I don't use organic pesticides. And you're right. But I don't use natural out in our garden. That is strictly used indoors in our seedling trays, and it pretty much dies after it, after it has a life in the soil. So you are correct. Blair House Blooms, thank you for asking that question. But we do use that indoors in our trays. And once our trays move out to even be hardened off, we stop using it. That is purely an enclosed growing pesticide. And it is organic. It's actually a larvicide. It's not a pesticide. But anyway, so I want to move over back to our sunflower sowing, which is our normal weekly deal. And I'm going to run through that quickly. So maybe I can sow some of my corn also. So we sow sunflower seeds every week to then have sunflowers to harvest every single week. If you're a home gardener, I would recommend using the 2-inch blocker. Start 8 on, 8 of the 2-inch blocks fit perfectly on a small, these are foam reusable trays. And to start 8 a week just means first off, it's very simple to do. And that way you just have a continuous supply of sunflowers to cut, or if you want to leave them out in your garden for your birds to have them. So if you're going to do a larger volume, we use the 128 plug trays. And in the mix that we use when we're using plug trays is 50% India potting mix mixed with 50% compost. Finished good compost does not need to be sifted. And I mix those together. Now, what I think, starting to say when we broke to take Joe on is that what I'm thinking about when I'm considering which sunflowers I want to start, I'm thinking about when are they going to be blooming and what colors are appropriate or best for that time if you're growing them for bouquets, right? So I grow primarily Pro Cuts. Pro Cuts is a family of sunflowers, comes in 14 different colors, and they are quick from seed to bloom. That was what drew me to them initially. But why I love them also is they're pollenless. Friends, that is quite all right. They do produce nectar, but they do not produce pollen. Kind of hampers the vase life of sunflowers. Pollen production ages flowers and they don't last nearly as long. However, they do produce a ton of nectar, as you can come here at any time and just see the sunflowers we've left in our garden are just covered in my neighbors' honeybees, as well as our native bees are here. So I'm thinking of what color of Pro Cut I'm going to be cutting that'll be blooming in 60 days from now. So this week, I'm going to be starting the peach, which we've already been starting that every week, right? That's a great earlier spring color. And then I'm also going to be still starting, what was the other one? Oh, the Gold Light, which is the gold with the chartreuse green center. And then I'm adding new this week, the Bouquet Mix. What is today? It's March. I think it's the 25th. So I'll do the Bouquet Mix. And so I like to, at least throughout most of the season, have one sunflower or one mix that I start over and over. So my timing is perfect each week, right? So from here on out, what I'm going to try to start every week is the bouquet mix. The bouquet mix is a custom mix by the Gardener's Workshop where we mix orange, Brilliance, Horizon, and Orange XL. They're like different hues of orange. And let me just write this, y'all. I cannot multitask like I used to. And then the other one was peach. Sorry, y'all. So particularly when I was back in high production, we started 1,200 sunflowers a week, right? And so back then, I only started Pro Cut Orange. If I were doing that today, I would start Pro Cut Horizon. Pro Cut Horizon looks just like orange, but the blooms are more upward facing, which makes making bouquets a whole lot easier. I use masking tape and our garden marker. This garden marker is made to go outdoor, is made to be withstand outdoor conditions, meaning moisture and UV rays. And I always mark my trays first because I forget. And it's really helpful to, at very least, know what the date is. Because once your seedlings start growing and you're going to be planting them out when they're 2.5 to 3 weeks old in the garden, it's so easy to mistakenly plant some that are younger instead of grabbing the older ones. So you always want to identify what you've got there. So we'll set this aside. And so I have, what is first? Bouquet mix. All right, so we make the bouquet mix in-house. And let me, and it includes those 4 oranges that I just told you. And now you're going to be able to see what I'm actually going to do here. I'm just going to dump some in my hand. And these, the bouquet mix includes some, let's see about here. This will get easier for you to see as I move over. I'm going to drop 1 seed onto the surface of each cell pack. So we make this mix in-house because just growing this mix, if you planted this mix every week all summer, you would have a beautiful bouquet just from these. And so some of these are black oil and some are striped. And that's because the different colors have different, their seeds are different. So I'm going to do about 5 or 6 rows of each of those 3 colors that we just marked here. So I'm going to do this one more. And so we'll talk about the rest of the story here. So these 128 trays, once you get 4 or 5, we sell them in packs of 5. And that for the average person is enough because remember, they're only going to grow in the tray until they're 2.5 to 3 weeks old. So like if that were this tray would be empty in 3.5 weeks. You know, we would have planted these, right? So you don't have to buy a ton of trays. You just have to have enough to be able to get your trays started each week and to have them to go through rotation. All right, so you're planting these, and you'll see what I do next here. We are then going to take them into the grow room, water them in really well, and water longer than you think. After you think they're well watered, you ought to stick your finger down into a cell and see, is it truly wet all the way through? Sometimes you might be surprised. All right, that's our gold light. And so I'm going to take them in the room. I'm going to water them in really well. Having a terrible time with my seed packets today, y'all. It's because I'm packed in here like a sardine. All right. So that's gold light. What do we need? We need peach next. I'm going to take them into the room, water them in really well, and then I'm going to pop them up onto the heat mat. So why do you need to do a heat mat? First off, more seeds just germinate quicker and faster and more uniformly. But in sunflowers, I find that the heat is what really gives it the heat that it needs to start growing a fabulous root system. And that root system is what's going to make these sunflowers super easy to pull out of these plug trays. I often hear from people, my roots just aren't robust, or I'm trying to pull the stems and the whole it rips the stem from the roots. That should not be the case, friends. And that's about strong root formation. As a commercial grower, we're always looking for speediness. And speediness means knowing the right time to plant these plants so that you can just reach and pull and the whole thing comes out quickly and easily so you can just plant it. There is no time for digging seedlings out. So what I'm going to do next, and you'll be able to see it better here in just a minute, is I am just putting my fingers on top of the seeds and pushing them down about halfway into the cell, halfway down. Sunflowers germinate best when they are covered. They need darkness. And so by doing this, you've set them up so that when you water and wash the soil off of the walls of the cell, that will complete covering them and you'll be ready to go. So you do not need to add more soil on top. Y'all, it is all about efficiency. You should be able to do this in a nanosecond and get on with your day if you're a flower farmer. All right, so now what would happen is I would take this in my grow room. I will water them in with a sprinkler on my watering can, water them in well, put them on heat. Then they'd get taken down each morning and watered when everything else gets watered in there. When 50% of them, when I see those necks coming up on 50% of these seeds, they can do one of two things. They will either be moved over to a grow light if grow light is available, which it is not, or they will be moved outdoors into the open full sun because it's now warm enough during the days. We're going up to 75 today. We can move them outside to get the light that they need during the day. And if it's going to drop at night, I can move them back in. You can use row cover like Joe was talking about for a little bit extra protection. So that is our process. So here's what happens. The goal is that these will be planted out in the garden when they're 2.5 to 3 weeks old. We plant into 30-inch wide beds that have been prepared with the organic dry fertilizer. We do not use Bio 360, the biodegradable film that I use all over my farm. If you look in the farm cam, which is the live feed that's on YouTube, you can see our newly made beds, even though they are completely covered in pollen right now. They aren't even black anymore, y'all. They're yellow. Anyway, you can see beds that haven't been planted and some that have been planted. We don't do that for sunflowers. Remember, these sunflowers are from seed to bloom 60 days. When we plant them, they're already, say, 20 days old. So they're a third of the way through their life. It's a waste of labor, energy, money, and resources in our experience for us. So we plant into open beds, little bit raised beds. We've prepared with fertilizer. We put 5 rows into a 30-inch wide bed, and the plants are 6 inches apart in row. We use that flower support netting, which I can't reach. The flower support netting, which has 6-inch blocks, we lay that out on the surface, and that's our planting guide, and it's taken right back up when we're done. We water it in using a hose with a wand. Every plant gets a good drink. And then we don't install irrigation. We have learned that because we get about 52 inches of rain a year, sunflowers are, once they're planted, when they're healthy and they hit the ground running, they don't need the irrigation because we get such frequent rains here. You may need to irrigate. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. So we do not use Bio 360. We do not do irrigation. And the other thing we don't do that we normally do everywhere else is we don't use support netting to support the canopy. We just plant too many too often to be able to do that. I am willing to take the calculated risk. So that's what's going to happen to these. The other thing I wanted to share with you today very quickly is, and I'm not going to actually do it on screen, so I'll look at a couple of questions. We start our sweet corn this very same way. And why would we do that? And it follows the same method as sunflowers, meaning the age they get planted, and they're planted out in the garden differently. We still plant them single row like conventional sweet corn planting. But by having our sweet corn 3 weeks old at our last frost date, instead of planting seed then, they're 3 weeks ahead. That helps us prevent pest damage. We typically harvest our corn before we have any worm damage. If that moth that lays its egg in the ear that gives you that worm that's at the head of you. We just don't have that any longer. And why is that? Because insects are definitely temperature focused also. And because our corn is becoming ready before it's supposed to be, because I've tricked it, right? Then we virtually have no corn damage. So I will be starting all of our sweet corn after I get off here today, and it follows the very same method as we do for our sunflowers. So I'm going to look at some of the questions that Jesse has starred for me over here. So Dana says, I'm a home gardener. Can I plant 8 2-inch blocked pro-cut sunflowers in a 10-gallon grow bag? That is such a great question, Dana. Now, yes, I think so, but it's really more about what your surface area is. You need to know, and if you're not on our newsletter list, you didn't get my blog this last week about how you control the size of your sunflowers by the spacing that you space your sunflowers. The closer together we plant them, the smaller the bloom. So to get this size bloom, which is what we want as commercial growers, we plant them on that spacing that I just shared, about 6 inches apart in all directions. If they're a little closer, they might be a little smaller. So you would have to what I would probably do is I would plant 4 inches apart, maybe 4 to 6 inches apart around the perimeter in a circle, and then space your middle ones out about 4 to 6 inches apart. And if you feed them every week and water them, I bet they'll do really great. But I don't know how big a 10-gallon surface is. You might even be able to get more than that in there. But that's a really great question. So Jean is asking, Saponaria and others we misplant in the fall, do we have to start them indoors since the ground is too cold in spring? So Jean, I did an experiment. I don't know if you were with us several weeks ago where we had a fake spring here. We had like 3 weeks of really warm temperatures. And because I lost a lot of my Saponaria to cold damage, the craziness of that polar blast. And anyway, long story short, a lot of it is cold killed. So I sowed more Saponaria out in the garden like 5 weeks ago, but we had like 3 weeks of 60 to 70 degree days, and it germinated beautifully. I am happy to report. So it's all about temperatures. You can direct sow it. I think you might have a better chance direct sowing this late. Depends on where you are, of course. But if you direct sow it now and give it a little extra TLC, meaning water, and maybe covering it with a row cover to concentrate the heat, you might be able to do it. And I did it. But again, we were having 60 to 70 degree days. So I would definitely give that a try. So Susan, should calendula be planted in the small or the large soil blocks? So if I was starting them in a home garden situation, I would do it in the 2-inch block. We actually start them in plug trays. You can get them into small soil blocks, but they just need to be moved up almost instantly. So why not just skip that step? Because they're a big seed. But we do them in plug trays, but I would definitely do it in the 2-inch block if I was a home gardener. Clarifying, start seeds on heat, remove to light, no heat for 16 hours, snaps. Start seeds on heat. Yes, we start pretty much everything on a seedling heat mat. Cool season means that they're on a cookie cooling rack to cool it down some, and that includes snapdragons. I've heard it really depends on the temperatures of where you're starting stuff. I have seen people talk about that they don't start snaps on heat. I have never been able to do that. So we do start it on seedling heat mat with a cookie cooling rack. They don't need it hot. They need some warmth, continuous, to crack and pop. And once they crack 50%, we move them from the heat over to grow lights. And then my grow room is like now it's too warm in our grow room to really be able to start cool season stuff. So I hope that helps you somewhat. Felicia, do you pinch all Celosia varieties aside from the coxcomb? So Celosias is a big family. There's plumes and there's coxcomb. Coxcomb are the crested, brainy looking ones. And then the plumes are anything from a spicata, which is really skinny, to some of the plumosas that are bigger. In my experience, all of the plumosa and the spicatas, all the plumes are branchers. They can all be pinched, or I pinch them all. Coxcomb, not so simple. You need to look up the variety to see if it's a single stem or a branching plant. You cannot rely on necessarily catalogs either. And so you can find the culture sheets, looking up the name of, look up culture sheet for whatever variety you have. And the hybridizer, the producer of that seed will typically come up, and they have a sheet, and it'll tell you there, 1 flower per stem. So for me, the ones that we start that are single stem that I do not pinch are Spring Green, Coral Unlimited, Neo, Bombay are some of the older ones, and Act. Act is on the fence. They say Act's a single, but I actually had branching on that one. So you'll just have to kind of check that out yourself. But that's my story on that. So Daniel is saying, and this is such a cool season issue. My snaps are wilting even after watering. Been going on for a couple weeks now and seems like it's spreading through the tray. Is it a root fungal issue? We're planning on planting this weekend. Oh, I thought you meant they were outside. So yes, probably that is probably a constant water thing. And it may be too late to do anything about that. But yes, that's one of the things that you prevent by having that 24-hour going from moist through the day and getting dry overnight, so that they are really dry, crumbly when you come in the morning. It's not hospitable to these kinds of problems, and there's no telling what it is, but I would definitely get them out of that tray ASAP. And if it's wilted, I wouldn't obviously worry about planting those. What other crop that's warm season that I was just looking at mine this morning thinking I've got to remember to go drier than wetter is Gumphrena. We lost a bunch of Gumphrena last year exactly like that. I mean, we were waiting for the rain to stop outside to be able to plant, and the trays were just going down. I mean, it's just moving through the trays. So that means probably an overwatering situation. And I don't mean overwatering, over moisture too long, 24/7 is what kind of situation. And it's one of those living and learning. And when I said that's just such a cold weather thing, we're losing some crops out in the field to disease. And it's just, I was talking to Dave Dowling about it. It's like, oh my gosh, Dave, of all the years, we're doing photo shoots for a book here, right? And it just happens when it's cold and wet, the garden stays wetter longer in the wintertime. So any rain or snow or ice, all of that, the ground just tends to stay wet 24/7. What you're trying to not do inside in a seed tray because of the problems. Well, out in the field, you just really have, unless you have a hoop house, a structure to block the rain, right, or snow, there's really nothing to do. And so that's steps. It actually gave me some ideas. I mean, that's just, you really have to have super raised beds, and some years you just can't do anything about it. And anyway, so sorry about that, Daniel. Joanne, do you use bought compost? If so, what is the name of it? So we do. We buy compost by the dump truckload. We buy compost by the bag. The bag compost is what we use to mix with our potting soil, to use in containers and in our seed starting in plug trays. And I don't even know the brand name of that one. It is very regionally based, meaning most potting soils, compost, because the shipping, I mean, they're just bulky, are very regionally based. I think this one is coast of Maine or something. But I mean, we just buy whatever is available. And you just want it to be finished. When I opened the bag, I literally stuck my nose down there. There's no odor. You shouldn't smell anything. It should be nice, finished project. product. So, that's one of the barriers that people really feel like they are up against is like I can't possibly make enough compost. Nobody can make enough compost. You have to buy some, whether that means in a pickup truck that you go somewhere and buy it, or you have it delivered or whatever, or you buy it bagged for your seed starting operation. But we definitely purchase tons of compost. Carla, why do you put them on heat first and not heat and light together? Because you will literally cook them alive. They don't require light. When a seed says it needs light to germinate, that doesn't mean intense grow light. That just means light. But what I've learned through the years, what that really means is not so much light as it does mean put me on the surface so I can get a lot of oxygen. I learned about that when I started using a germination chamber years ago because we just had so much volume. We could never have enough heat mat space. It's like, okay, they're surface sown. They need light. It's dark in my germination chamber. How does that work? I mean, that's where we just get great. A germination chamber is like a sauna. It's warm moisture in there, but it's dark inside. So really surface sowing's not really as much, I believe, about the light as it is about putting them on the surface, seated firmly to get good oxygen and all the other pieces of the pie that they actually need. So that's what the story is on that. So Amy says, should I harden off the cool season flowers, seedlings, even when my outside temperatures are 35 to 40 during the day? So Amy, that totally depends on, so for us, if our stuff has not, you have to harden them off. The bottom line is, how are you going to do that? So sometimes we've taken cool season hardy annuals straight from our grow room and planted them, but they're immediately hooped and covered, which blocks all the wind, blocks the sun. It has the very same effect. So yes, they need to be hardened off. You need to either do it outdoors slowly, however you do that, or when you plant them in the garden, you immediately hoop and cover them. So I want to remind everybody that you can watch our farm cam. Bobo will be planting, probably not again for a week or so. She might be planting something on Monday, but you can sometimes catch us out there working, but you can kind of watch the garden grow. And so friends, remember about Joe's summit that's coming up. I mean, I'm totally stoked about that, getting those recordings because I won't be able to watch them. My book deadline, my manuscript deadline is April 1st, y'all. That's a week from today. And so I will be kind of tied up this week, and I'm just going to bring my seedlings back over here so y'all can see them again that we looked at earlier. And so be sure to sign up for his summit. I cannot wait to watch and learn more. And I can't wait to teach in Joe's course that's coming up, his big organic vegetable gardening course that I think opens not this week, but next week. Anyway, Joe's a wealth of information, and y'all, we're all still learning. Nobody can ever achieve enough. And so I invite you to check out thegardenersworkshop.com for our home base, but also Jesse just put the link up. If you want to register for Joe's summit, do that this morning. Share that with your friends, copy and paste it, and invite any of your friends that are gardeners. I'm telling you, Joe is a wealth of information, and this is a resource that you will not have access to after it's over if you didn't register for it, right? So friends, I'm going to plant some corn and then get on with my day. I've already done a little bit of work out in the garden this morning, and I'm going to go out there and do a little fertilizing give a little bubble bath to some of my cool flowers that are starting to grow. So friends, until we meet again. Oh, totally forgot. And remember that our specials inside the app are available until Sunday morning at 8 a.m. If you don't have the phone app, Gardener's Workshop, go to your phone app, look for that, download it, watch yesterday's show. And we had some great specials, and we introduced our vegetable seeds, y'all, all my favorite varieties. So go check it out. Till we meet again, friends. Ciao.